Hey everybody, this is Dr. Connie. Welcome to my show, Functional Yoga Medicine. If you have not done so, please subscribe to our podcast as well as to follow us on Dr. Connie Cheung Instagram, where we're pretty active there to share information to help you to level up and elevate your clinical practice to have more results. Today, I really want to talk to you guys about state of healthcare. It's something that we all think, but we don't know exactly what to do about it. Recently, I've been post-COVID. I've been hospitalized because of my autoimmune condition, and I learned a lot from the experience of being a patient. But really, it's the collective 22 years of my living with autoimmunity that I finally came to a realization about patient care and really the disconnect between healthcare and patient care. Healthcare is all about really taking care of our health. And I think oftentimes as practitioners, we dismiss the person that's sitting in front of us. There's a lot of psychological, emotional, I guess, trauma that goes along with being sick, being hospitalized, being sick, and doing multiple tests, holding your breath for the answers to come or the results to come. All these are very much a roller coaster ride for the patient. And this is an acute state. And in an acute state, I believe our healthcare system is great. It allows us to figure out really what's wrong. And we can really problem solve to make sure that the symptoms are under control so that the patient can then be independent out of the hospital and live normal lives. And I've been through the process multiple times in my living with autoimmunity. And I have to say, whenever I got discharged from the hospital, not only there were increasing numbers of mistakes being made by the nurses, the doctors, and different attending doctors. If you don't have or get assigned to your own primary doctors that's overseeing your care and you're being taken or managed by your hospitalists, it's really hard to really establish rapport. You really have to understand that the patient is there to really mitigate the risks, health risks with their condition at that very moment and stabilize their medical condition. They're discharged home and then they're, supposed to follow up with their primary care physicians, right? If and when you do follow up with the primary physicians or experts or what have you, the patient is still left to figure things out on their own, okay? And most of the patients that I've had to deal with, or the privilege of serving in the last 22 years, they don't really necessarily know where to start, right? They get discharged and they live their normal lives. And so as long as their symptoms are manageable, they never really seek care beyond what they need. They know the medical system and they sort of stop there unless they go to the doctor and they get referred out for various specialists and ancillary services, such as registered dietitian or physical therapy or pharmacy, or even specialists like rheumatology to dermatology to gastroenterology, what have you. Okay, so that's an acute care setting. But I really need you to understand from a personal experience what the traumatic, psychological, and emotional roller coaster ride it is for the patient. And for things to settle down, that's almost like a priming process for the body to heal. And I say the body because it's not my body. The body needs to do whatever it needs to do. As much as I'm well-versed and educated on what to do, that includes yoga, meditation, eating right, and all the things, I've had many circumstances where none of those things really even stuck, let alone do I have the energy or the desire to do those things. Sometimes I was struggling with my appetite. Sometimes I was really, really, really overwhelmed with fatigue. And there was just no way that I can comply with whatever. And even taking medications was a chore for me because of the nausea that I was getting. So these are some stumbling blocks that real patients will have issues with. So as practitioners, I'm really, really wanting you, because I've had many insensitive, ignorant practitioners, doctors, nurses, what have you. And when there's a disconnect, it's a really scary place for a patient to be, recognizing that you're really there fending for your own health. It got to a point where all the medications that were prescribed in the hospital, they would just blindly give it to me by the hour or on schedule. And they're meticulous because that's their job. And if I didn't have any medical background to say no to certain drugs that I didn't need, I wouldn't have had that voice. And so this really comes from a place of really recognizing that we must have a paradigm shift here. If you're watching this, I'm assuming that you're one of the practitioners who's looking for a better way, because really we're treating the humans in front of us, and human condition today, really honestly, we're not living in the most optimal condition. And really, health and wellness is $1 trillion industry. And if you're in healthcare, it's not where it's expensive and there's money to be paid, but we are really under strict regulations of the system, which is the medical system, which really, if you talk to most practitioners, it doesn't make sense. We have a number of quotas that we have to meet. That means shorter patient care visits. And then we have to cover a lot of territory. So we're left referring them out everywhere else. And then the patient needs to figure out, as far as wellness and health, which they're seeking on Instagram or social media, YouTube, what have you. And there's plenty of influencers to give them that advice, but nobody is there to connect the dots for them. And that's where I am here to voice. This is a huge opportunity for you to step up, not only elevate your career, but have more impact in your lives, because there's many of you who are healthcare practitioners, whether you're a pharmacist, registered dietitian, physical therapist, or even medical doctors. In the conventional realm, it's really hard to break out and really do anything impactful because you're really handcuffed to the system. And we have to do certain things a certain way, even if it's not working. We comply with those rules and regulations because at the end of the day, we want to protect our license and liability, right? But we're living in a society where we're underslept, we're stressed out, we're overworked and overstimulated, and we're all stretched out thin, especially the healthcare practitioners. And then you compartmentalize, you end your day, you go home, you try to make the best of it, but really you have to return. And so for me, what I realize is career and your life is not separate. You have to be edified in all things. And it's certainly available to us, but we have to stop focusing on the external influences and inputs that never stop, because we're simply conditioned to look for external validation. And that's the very paradigm shift that I invite you and challenge you as practitioners to step up and improve your career or your clinical practice so that you can do more for the patients and feel good knowing when you go to sleep at night that you've really truly done your best to truly help and serve and impact the lives that you serve. Because as practitioners, we're conditioned to seek knowledge outside of us, constantly learning more, this technique, that technique. And then nobody teaches us how to integrate them within the practice of whatever it is. But we're all busy staying close to our scope of practice. And it's very polarizing within the industry of conventional medicine because it's all about our domain, right? Chiropractic to physical therapy. There's a lot of fights about what is manipulation. We can't even say manipulation. We can say high thrust, joint mobilization. It's like a play on words. Acupuncturist with physical therapists. I've experienced as a dry needler. I can't say a certain thing, so we have to say dry needling because we're not injecting anything. The needle itself is dry, but it's acupuncture, right? And so these are all things that I've had to learn, but try to integrate, but stay within my scope that further isolates us as a practitioner as well as separates us and the care that the patient is receiving. And we have to change this. And we all know we need to make a change, but we just don't know how. And that's what we want to talk about today. Because change is hard unless we shift the paradigm. And really, paradigm is, by definition, is a typical example or a pattern or pattern of something. It's a model by which we see the world and operate in our world. It's a model by which we're all conditioned to live without questioning the model itself. Well, I'm challenging you today, inviting you to question the very paradigm that we've bought into, we've bought into, very expensive for some of us, if you've been in school for a long time, through the didactic education and the system by which we work. And I realized the deeper the hole that we're digging, the higher the education level, it's harder for us learned people to come shift out of that paradigm because we're so invested in it, right? And we think knowledge is power, but really that knowledge really limits our ability to see the bigger picture. So I really think you as a practitioner today in this society need to be flexible and fluid, go dive deep into your knowledge base, but also to pull out, to apply it practically, to invite your patients to live the lifestyle and live the solution day to day, as opposed to being higher up, giving them all the recommendations. That's probably right, but it's hard when the patient is faced with the obstacles that they have to deal with in their own lives. So unless you see the human being and the human experience that they're experiencing day to day, it's no different than you. So stop compartmentalizing your career and really approach your patient care from a place of where you are. Because I know plenty of you as practitioners are struggling with your own health and your own vitality, with your own energy and with your own family and finances and all the things. And many of you guys are stuck, right? So I want you to think about it. Think about the last time that you wanted to make or take a practical common sense approach about something, but it's not something didactically that you learned and you realize that that's not adhering to your logical expertise because you didn't want to step out of that, because what the patient expects, for example, from an endocrinologist is to only talk about the hormones, right? They don't talk about the integration between hormones and stress, or hormones and the lung function or the kidney function. Talk about the cardiometabolic. They're asked to go to a cardiologist or a endocrinologist or a GI doctor to try to sum all things up. But in the meantime, as the patient that's going to all those specialists, they become very disconnected. And in the fragmented way by which you're dealing with the problem really confuses and overwhelms the patient. And the patient has no choice but to turn to social media experts, which they have no didactic understanding. But guess what? They provide logical, practical tips on how to eat every day, how to cook every day. It may not necessarily be applied with or supplied with the knowledge base that you know, but imagine if you can do both, right? Provide them with nuggets of applied knowledge so that the patient can live the solution every single day, as opposed to separating the recommendation or the prescription from their lifestyle. Really integrating where they are to your expertise is key. And that can't be a disconnect. You can't talk over them. And yet plenty of practitioners, as an experienced patient, talk down to me or over me with what they know. It's not necessarily connecting with who I am and what I need at this very moment when I'm with them, when I need their services. They're completely failing me in that way. And so I've had to go home, either cry it out or figure out a better way. And this happened to me over and over, long enough and often enough to recognize, oh my gosh, I need to fix this. I need to work on the practitioners to really be integrators of this field, to connect the dots so that we can sum it up for the patient in a way that makes sense for them. because for so long I had to deliver, for example, as a physical therapist, clinical care within the scope of physical therapy. Whether that was the best solution for the patient or not, that's what I'm here to deliver. Just play the role of the physical therapist. There were plenty of times where the underlying cause was embedded within the patient's habits and the lifestyles. Yet because of the referral system, I had to address the problem within my scope. And frankly, the patient didn't know any better. And then I would have to refer them out to a dietitian, even though I'm one, I can't talk about it. And so we're handcuffed, right? And that's what I want to disseminate and really destroy and really put away that thought and step into using your knowledge in the best way you know how, mirror that or combine that with the technological breakthroughs that we have today. And much like the influencers, how about if we become practitioner influencers who can really approach this from the lens of knowledge, but then applied knowledge for the patient and meeting them where they are. I think it would be a phenomenal service to them. And it's a way we can all come together to make a difference and generations of change in the healthcare system. Okay. And really utilize your knowledge to your fullest. Because really, I had to address the problem on my own, and I had to connect the dots, because ever since I was diagnosed back in 1998, the conventional medical system, all they could give me was immune suppressants as well as corticosteroids for my autoimmunity, and they told me I would be on it for the rest of my life. They didn't give me any other options. Okay, me being a registered dietitian, I needed a better option. And even the registered dietitian failed myself, because all the conventional things of dealing with different cardiometabolic and kidney disease and all those things really didn't apply. I needed to figure out a way to dislike the foods that I loved and really break down the emotional attachments that I had with the foods that I was eating day to day. And that was a hard task. It doesn't matter what I know. How I applied that was very different from a patient standpoint. And you guys all have to recognize that. Okay. And then I just really want you to understand that from that place, I went to a TCM doctor, traditional Chinese medical doctor. And he told me at that time I was a vegan going to Loma Linda University. It's one of the blue zones where centurions live. And so I adopted this vegan lifestyle, and he immediately took a pulse, and I barely was, perpendicular or standing up by myself, because I was so hypotensive at the time. And he immediately said, you need to start eating meat, not just any meat, red meat. And so I remember my family, my friends were so happy and ecstatic that I became normal like them. And I followed suit and took blindly whatever herbal medications that I was given. I was 6 months out from a marriage, my wedding. And so I took that on. And by the end of 6 months with herbal medication, eating meat, and really diversifying my diet without question, I didn't really bring in my scientific knowledge of why. I just did what the doctor said, traditional Chinese medical doctor, didn't tell my rheumatologist, but I was able to get off all my meds. And so that's me, a rebel patient, trying to figure things out. And so that really changed my perspective in what I knew. And I realized I needed to change perspective and really expand my knowledge and not stay within my scope of practice and be right all the time, because that limits my ability to see the bigger picture and see what's around. Because if you really think about it, traditional Chinese medicine is way older than conventional medical system. And if you look further into the dietary guidelines, as I began to look into functional medicine, I realized I met so many doctors who were anesthesiologists, OB-GYNs and rheumatologists, and every different sector of medicine came and they were learning nutrition and diet. Not that they were necessarily following what they were learning, but it was highly scientific. Everything was black and white because evidence-based medicine, right? And there were some talks of establishing rapport with the patients, but it wasn't emphasized, right? And they came at it from a brain angle, like intellect, knowledge-based, and scientific evidence, even in this holistic realm. Well, let me tell you, when I have flares of autoimmunity, despite following through all the functional medical guidelines and the dietary components, a lot of it complicated, highly complex, confusing, overlapping between all the different diets that they tried to have us learn, which is impossible if you're a clinician. And so, and I started to see different dietary programs come out that call themselves health coaching, or what have you, or nutritionists, and different parts of different health and wellness, because whatever was complicated didn't really translate again into patient lifestyle and practical, simple ways where a patient can follow through. It was causing patients to be orthorexic, meaning they were scared to eat anything, because functional medicine really focused on eliminating all the toxic foods. And when you villainize food, that relationship, the psyche behind the food and the person relationship really goes south. Because Socrates said, food is thy medicine, but if you're scared of food, how can that heal you, right? And so you have to learn that our human body is multi-dimensional, and sometimes it doesn't need anything. Sometimes when it's in an acute flare, you just have to let it calm down. The inflammation will calm down with its inherent miraculous ability to succumb. It doesn't mean you as a practitioner need to decrease the inflammation. The moment you try to do that with medication, supplements, or what have you, when the patient is acutely flared up, it's going to really add to the toxic pool. So you just have to stand back, allow the patient, support them, have them accountable, mentor them, and meet them where they are to support them. Sometimes that's all you need to do for the patients to come out of it. Because the ultimate goal for us as practitioner is what? For the patient to be well, right? And we don't want to be disconnected from them. We want them to be well and are equipped with all the things that they can do to really address all facets and obstacles in their lives, not just medically, physically, because we're not compartmentalized creatures where health is over here, finance is over here, relationships over there. All things come together to create this stress. And stress is the number one reason why everybody is sick. And stress is intangible. It's not something we can scientifically measure. And sometimes that even as practitioners, the more I know, the more I realize, the more I don't know. And the more I try to make it black and white, the more it's gray. And the more I try not to see the grayness of it all, the more I fail my patients. And so I really need you guys to understand that, let things go. And this is why I created the ultimate paradigm, or the model by which we can all function, by healing you and equipping you as practitioners to be equipped to understand human nature, right? And it's got 4 elements, and it's transformational psychology, which includes the inner work with learning that our thoughts are what we're manifesting, which is the outer manifestation, and that collectively is transformational psychology. And we also give you the coaching tools to guide and mentor your patients, because what is the number one thing that we lack when we come out of clinical education is our ability to establish rapport, not just being liked, but really understanding that whatever our knowledge is, it needs to translate into something that the patient can follow through. And it's not about taking medications in a timely manner. It's about learning what the body needs. It needs water, it needs nutrition, it needs for them to really mind their own health by connecting with their breath, utilizing exercise, but simple exercises and posture and alignment of their body really affects the metabolic ability and the vagal nerve, the sympathetic to the parasympathetic nervous system. All these things all come together. And unless you have a general knowledge of that, it doesn't really help for you to put shutters on and say, nope, that's not my domain. I'm going to stay over here in the hormone department, when you know that the patient has musculoskeletal pain, but it's connected with the hormones. Hormones are connected, whether you like it or not, with the GI and the digestive system. And the digestive system, whether or not you like it or not, is involved with our neurogenic system, neurological system. It's not compartmentalized. We have to be able to pull it all together, right? And so I really want to talk about the fact that within the realm of holistic intervention, whether it be chiropractic, acupuncture, physical therapy, diet, exercise, no doubt they all help. But unless you as a practitioner can put it all together and have that knowledge to make it make sense, to really make patients whole and make that translate into something that they can wake up to and do every day, then the patient has no chance of being independent and being self-empowered to heal. And unless we make that shift possible, that the body will not be optimized, or health might not be optimized, okay? Because the body will do what it needs to do. It has the inherent intelligence and the ability far beyond what you can implement for your patients. All you have to do is provide the right environment for the body to function at its best, connect the dots, and the patients will love you and respect you and look to you for guidance for life. When you have a situation like that, not only are you doing a service to your patients, but also you now have a lifelong patient care relationship where now you can level up and amplify and leverage that relationship to many others to help them really, really up level their health and wellness and vitality. And so this is the kind of thing that we address in the functional yoga medicine program through our Alkaline methodology, kind of connecting the transformational psychology piece by giving you the coaching piece, by giving you all the holistic medicine piece that includes physical therapy, nutrition, and functional medicine, along with the ancient wisdom piece of learning what yoga is, meditation, and the breath cycles and energy of the body, to pull it all together for you to have a framework and the model by which you can see the bigger picture, as well as really get down deep into the rabbit hole of your expertise to understand, but also make it translate into a lifestyle solution for your patients. So I want to invite you to our free functional yoga medicine series training that I'll be hosting in 2 weeks. So I want you to click the link below, sign up and join me. And I know you're going to get so much out of that. And as a bonus, I give you the functional breakthrough formula, where I kind of walk you through the importance of physical assessment and including that in your practice to up level your game, your clinical game. And really, at the end of the day, if you can impress more patients to want to work with you because of the results that you deliver, you'll never be struggling for patient care or your income. Your financial success now is tied to your impact. And when you have that, you're not separating your career from your life. Everything will be edifying and you'll have the best practice ever, delivering the best results. And you get to be the part of the greater future where you're making now changes, generations of change in healthcare itself. So I invite you to challenge yourself, come join me and really learn everything you need to learn to integrate everything into practical lifestyle tips that you can follow as well as to implement that for your patients as well. I'll see you there. Click the link below and I'll see you in my